Welcome to the Wisdom of Show. I'm your host, Simon Bowen, and every week I'm speaking to the world's greatest leaders, thinkers, and entrepreneurs about complex issues and impactful leadership. Join us in the Renaissance of Wisdom. Today I'm speaking with Abdul-Qawiyy, an entrepreneur who went from selling airtime in Nigeria at 11 years old to build companies that he sold for over 128 million by the age of 21. So he's the founder of ThePhnyxWatches, a luxury brand with over 500,000 people on its waitlist. And he's also a mentor helping founders scale to 8 and 9 figures. What I think sets him apart is not just his success, but the wisdom beneath it. That systems create freedom, resilience turns struggles into superpower, and true wealth is measured not in hustle, but in legacy. Qawiyy is more than an entrepreneur. He's a symbol of what's possible when vision, discipline, and courage collide. And today he's here to share that wisdom with us. And I can't wait for us to hear his story. Welcome, Qawiyy, to the podcast. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Qawiyy, you started selling airtime at 11 in Nigeria. I think Nigeria, $2,000 per, I don't know what a unit is of airtime, but this 11, this is a very young entrepreneurial age. That just give us that little bit of a backdrop. But what I'd love to know is, what were the important lessons that you got that you actually still carry today around, the nature of business and entrepreneurialism? But just give us that little story first so we get a sense of the context.
Yeah, so my parents divorced when I was 8 years old. My mom had custody of us, and she was a high school teacher. My dad, a university lecturer, and I saw the life that they lived, and I didn't want any of that. But my mom was struggling because she was a teacher, and they get paid barely enough. Now, in context of today's currency, that's actually less than $2 that I started with selling airtime. And for me, it was a gift. Someone came visiting my mom on one of the festive periods and gave us money. And so at the back of my head, I was like, I don't want to spend this money buying candy or biscuits. I just want to see how can I turn this into something else. And I think that stemmed from my mom's entrepreneurial path. My mom used to sell UK used clothes. And so I was like, I know my mom would take loans and then go sell clothes, but I guess this is my own startup capital. And that's thinking in hindsight now, that's what was my own startup capital. And I was in the high school, right? I was about to get into high school, my junior level in high school. Now, phones were a contraband in the hostel, but seniors came to the hostel with the phones. And so I was like, if seniors come to the hostel with phones, they do need airtime to call their girlfriends, because that's why they came to the hostel with phones anyways. But they can't go into the city to buy it. So I went to the security and I told him, I was like, can you get me airtime from town, which that's what we call the city, that if you can, I'll give you some of my profit to it. And now in hindsight, that's delegation, finding someone to carry out the task to fulfill the demand. And so I got back to the hostel that time, and we went for prep class, and I just told the prefect, I was like, if you guys need airtime, I've got airtime. Soon enough, the door to my room was flooded with seniors needing, oh yeah, you have airtime, can you give us airtime? So I started, it was like 5 units of MTN, the network network providers we had, and 5 units of Glo. Soon enough, I was sold out, right? And I had my profit. But I know I also needed to give the security guard some money, which would eat into my profit. So there and then, I told the seniors, because we had like over 1,000 senior students. So at the back of my head, I'm like, why don't I just tell them that, give me the money, and tomorrow when you need airtime, because I'm sure you would exhaust your airtime, when you need airtime, you would have it ready. Matter of fact, I'd have someone come give it to you instead of you coming to line up at my door. And boom, they just started paying me in advance, which is the pre-order method, which is still what I use till date. They paid me in advance. I told the guy, I gave him some profit out of my profit, and he was excited. And that was it. Like I literally turned, I turned what we would see as $1.30 then into, I think, roughly $4,000 in the current exchange rate. Within, yeah, that it's so it's so funny that was within like what 13 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is at 11, right?
Yeah, I was 11, yeah.
11 years of age. So, let's just kind of check in on the lessons there, right? So, without perhaps even realizing it in this language, you were building a business to exit because you found a compelling and unmet need in the marketplace. And instead of you being the product, you went and found somebody else that could actually solve that for you, which is the security guard, to get the solution you'd need to bring to the marketplace. Realized that people were going to buy this from you, and so immediately started figuring out what's a better go-to-market model. It's better if you can get people to pay you in advance. Let's do that as well. And this is kind of at age 11, right? It feels like you somehow got the lessons of entrepreneurialism channeled into you from your mother's past experience and from wherever else, which is really extraordinary. And so, you then built and sold two companies, I think, for a combined total of about 128 million by the time you were 21. Were they in tech, or, what were those? And did those stories build on what you did at age 11, like find an unmet need, helps get people to solve the problem for you so that you have a company, a package that could be sold? What's just give us that part of it for us.
Yeah, so the companies I ended up selling were, I would say I made the most of my money selling to human insecurities. The first one was for women who didn't like how they looked after childbirth. They had body dysmorphia. So it was, shapewear for them. And then the second one was for short guys who wanted to date tall girls in Nordic countries. But yeah, it was still the same model. People pay in advance. It's still the same thing I actually practice till today, even when it comes to my watch brand, because people join the wait list and then we do drops. So we validate the demand in the market and then go ahead to produce and sell out within minutes, because now people want the watches, and we tie it back to an emotional idea, which is the watches are for men who have built their lives from scratch to become someone of significance, right? So the fact that not everybody can get it makes it more endearing to the people who do want it. And because there's a story to it, it makes people gravitate towards it more. So it's literally the same thing I've practiced all of my life. Like, I don't do anything if there's no demand for it. I don't do anything if there's no story attached to it. And I don't do anything if I can't find other ways to adequately scale it outside of myself. And I think that's what most businesses lack. They focus more on being present and being super involved in the operations instead of working on the operations. And yeah, if you look at even how I did it as a kid, I wasn't the main person sourcing for the stuff. I was just the face of getting the stuff between the end users and the providers of the service, where I was just like a middleman.
Yeah. And so this idea of a drop, particularly in, the business to consumer or business to retail market, the three big things you said: you don't do anything if there's not a demand, you don't do anything if there's not a story, and you don't do anything if you can't create the business that provides the solution as opposed to you. And in fact, if people go, to ThePhnyxWatches, all you find at the website is this frustrating thing that says you need a password. It's and here's some watches on our next drop, but we've got a waiting list of kind of 500,000 people or something ridiculous. and you can't get in. There's no, hey, here's the founder, here's the story of the human, the person, like it's about the watch as a premium brand. And this idea of the drop into the retail or e-commerce business, is that also the story behind that $1 million day? You did sales in a day, of about $1 million. I still in that kind of young age period. It's this.
Yeah.
I love the idea of we want to be able to do a drop and have burning demand before we even move the product and get paid. What was that $1 million
Yeah.
day?
Well, I say the $1 million day was the best and the worst moment of my life in the sense that we used to sell 10,000, I think, yeah, we used to sell 10,000 units of the product in a month. We sold 29,000 pieces in a day. And we did $1.39 million in a day. And yeah, it was literally fulfilling an existing demand also because back then there was Vine and there were skit makers on Vine. So this guy took one of our products, like he approached the girl vividly. The video was he approached the girl by the pole and he was like at her chest level. She could barely, like, he could barely, he was looking up to her, right? And then she rejected him. And then he comes back and is at her face level and she pays him attention. And so there's that shock and wow factor to it, like what exactly happened, right? And he plugged the link to our product to the video, and people went crazy about it. Like now the thing is they couldn't get it immediately, so they had to sign up to the wait list. And then we did once we knew that this video was going viral, it had like 100 million views within I think 48 hours. We knew we had to do something. So we sent an email out to the list because we got like loads of people signing up. And we sent an email out to the list that, yeah, you can now shop the drop. And within, I think, I remember it was 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, we just saw the orders going crazy. But the mistake I made is I allowed the greed to get to me because I was thinking, oh, we're getting, we had the 500,000, 750, 1 mil mark. At the 1.39 million mark, I was like, that was when it got to me that, we have to factor in distribution and logistics for this. I don't think we can handle that. So that's when we turned off the website. The website went private back. But the thing is, the demand was there, obviously, because I never thought we could have that much people in one single day want something. But also, I think what drove that mass desire was people knew if they didn't get it now, their chances of getting it again would be slim, right? And also the resale value, like when someone buys from us, they end up selling for like 3-4 times what they buy from us because before you can get it from us again, you have to wait for the next drop. But yeah, drops for me has always been, I don't know, there's always been something that has been imbibed into every business that I ran. And so, yeah, but we ended up spending $250,000 in chargebacks because our manufacturer couldn't handle the entire volume to sell at that point in time. But yeah, that was the thing. I still say it till date. It was amazing, having that record, but it was also horrific when we look at what we had to deal with the months after that. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, you were 19, and life is full of lessons.
Yes.
Right? It's important to get the lesson and, make the adjustments. But it's interesting. So, you have Phnyx watches now, which are, a premium
Phnyx.
luxury watch selling into the luxury market. Similar sort of process.
Yes.
The drop is already on your website. It's a locked website. You need a password to get in, get on the waiting list. The business model and I think that's one of the keys, right? A business is get a go-to-market model that works and repeat it. And so the business model is there, but you're selling into the luxury market. This is not, some of the other markets that are appealing that kind of deep need somebody might have about their height or whatever. This is a luxury market. This is a completely discretionary spend for these people, and an expensive spend because it's premium and luxury. What have you noticed? And a lot of people want to sell into the premium end of a market, whether that's a service or a product, whether it's business to business or business to consumer. What have you noticed that is different selling to a premium end market, compared to some of the other markets you've sold into? How are they different? Have you had to address anything differently for them?
Yeah, so selling to affluent is different from selling to the masses, and different emotional buttons push them into making decisions. I read this book by Ted Nicholas called How to Sell to the Affluent. I've read something by Dan Kennedy, also around selling to the affluent. And one thing is status, greed, ego, and lust sometimes factors into what makes the ultra wealthy make certain decisions. But when you think about it, it's not that they don't have the money. It's you really need to push the emotional hot buttons that make them go, oh, I want that. And one of the things that make wealthy people spend a lot of money is when they know if they have something, it's rare for you to find it with other people. That's why Bugatti could release a car for $4 million and they are sold out already in 2025. Like their next production will be 2029. And these are cars that are not even created yet. They just created a concept model and it's already sold out, right? It's the same thing I applied. For us, it's like you could have $30 million, and if you're not the right fit for the ThePhnyxWatches, you're not going to have access to it, right? And like you said, you can't get access to even the website unless you have the secret passcode. And the only way you can get the secret passcode is if you join the wait list, right? And now when you're on the wait list, you never know when the drop is going to happen. So you constantly have to check your emails to be aware of when the drop is going to go live, right? So all of this are emotional triggers that makes people go, how do I lay my hands on it? Like, unless you actually meet me in person and I'm carrying my CEO box, because I have, so let me show you, I have the CEO brief here, which contains 20, just give me a minute, please. It contains 24 pieces of the watches. So unless you meet me in person and and I have this on me, you actually can't get your hand on it. So this year is 24 pieces, right? So you know that, okay, if I really want this, and we don't have any retail store yet, and that's intentional too, right? So, if you want to get your hands on it, you actually do have to keep your eyes on the wait list, and you also have to keep tabs with our Instagram page. And now the funniest part is usually founders have a larger following than their brands. But my brand has more engaged following than my own page, which is weird, right? But it was engineered. Everything that I've done to this point was engineered. And the watch industry is one of the hardest industries to get into. The watch industry is very, very difficult to get into. But I went into it with the mindset of, if I tell people I can show you how to build, scale, and exit a brand, I want them to see based on my current success, not based on my past success. And how best to do that than to build an actual brand and use it as a case study of, yeah, I do know what I'm saying. And let me show you how to do it and demonstrate in real time. But yeah, like speaking to the affluent people is really just about looking at what makes them make certain decisions, what makes people go, yes, I want that. It's one, appeal to their ego, appeal to status. Like, oh, I have this car, you can't drive this car. Like if you want to get a Bugatti, you know how long you have to be on the wait list. If you want to get a new Ferrari, you need to have had a old Ferrari. Like even if you go to the dealership, you have to buy a old Ferrari for it to get the new Ferrari, right? And then you have the discontinued models and all of that. One Ferrari sold for keep up with supercars a lot because I like supercars. One Ferrari just sold for I think $4.5 million right now, right? A Porsche 918 just sold for $25 million, even though like 10 years ago it was $2.5 million. So that's 10x. But why? Because there's so much demand for so little supply. For my watches
Yeah.
too, we limit the pieces to 1,200 pieces in a year. So you know that if you don't get the drop this time, you'd have to wait for 4 months. And there's a reason why I'm actually always sharing how many people are on the wait list. There's for people to go, dying. There's 600,000 people on the wait list now, and there are only 1,200 pieces that will be produced in a year. I better get it now. I better get it now. If I don't get it, chances of getting it reduces every time I wait. So, all these
Yeah.
things factor into it. But
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting. A lot of companies talk about and are concerned about commoditization, being commoditized in the marketplace. But I do have a theory that internal dilution of your value precedes commoditization. So when entrepreneurs and companies dilute their value internally first, let's have a long production run and put a lot of them out there, or, it's always available. You dilute the value, particularly in the premium market. And then, of course, the market naturally wants to commoditize you. Well, you had a drop this month, you're having one next month, and you're having one next month. I'll just wait until I'm ready rather than I need to, jump on this drop. So, there's a lot of conversation we could have around the business model and e-commerce and, business to retail or business to consumer selling. But you do also mentor young entrepreneurs to help them get to 8 and 9 figure business. And a part of the story is actually the struggle. And, I know that you talk about, your struggles are your superpower. I'd love to, I'm just going to grab my iPad. I'd love to dig into that a bit deeper with you and think, see if we can create a visual frame of reference for people. When you talk about, your struggles are your superpower and what that means, so just start telling us about that. Your struggles are your superpower. In your mind, what does that actually mean?
Most times when you're starting out in life, there needs to be something that pushes you, right? They say an object that remains in a position will keep being in that position until an external force is exerted on it, right? Now, pain can be used as that lever that pulls you in a different direction, or it can be the same thing that holds you in a same spot. Now, the way I look at it, like I said earlier, is like a towel. You could either wet that towel. I mean, when you're crying, you're shedding tears. So you could wet your towel, which is your towel out in this scenario, I'd say is the layer of piece that you have on, or you could turn that towel into your cape and then go use it to save other people. For example, when I told the story about my mom and the way she passed, a lot of people reached out to me and they were like, oh, the emotional abuse they've had to deal with, or some of them were like, they would have taken their lives if they didn't hear my story. And for me, that felt more empowering to know that there are people out there who were struggling with something. And by me voicing my challenges or the obstacles that I've had to deal with, it saved them. So in the same way, when it comes to like your goals or your ambition, you have to have something that will keep pushing you in that direction, because money can't be the only motivating factor. In the beginning, you want to survive, but after that, you want to thrive. And for you to thrive, you need that thing that lights the fire under you every day that you wake up. And every day that I wake up, I look at it from the lens of, I don't compare myself to other people. I just compare myself to the past version of me. I'm like, oh, if younger Abdul-Qawiyy could have this burning drive and burning vision to create a life, even when he didn't have any idea of what was attainable, and he could bring this to life, then what if I can allow myself to keep going and use this as internal motivation? Because there's extrinsic motivation and there's intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is the motivation you derive within yourself. Extrinsic is motivation that you derive because of factors outside of yourself, right? And for me, my intrinsic motivation has always been, I think I have a sense of pride to an extent, and I don't want to be at the mercy of anybody, right? And that was one of the reasons I got into entrepreneurship in the first place. I never want to have my options tied or limited to what someone says or what someone does. Now, the extrinsic motivation is me having access to the things that I truly want. Like, oh, yeah, I want to drive a nice car. I want to travel the world. I can do that, right? And so for most people, you have to have that thing that probably could be a painful situation that just motivated you to get into something. Like for me, my parents' divorce was one of the intrinsic motivations for me to get into entrepreneurship. Seeing my mom and how she lacked majority of the things that she wanted was intrinsic motivation for me. Now, the extrinsic motivation was I never had new clothes. I bought my first designer item when I was 21. I never had new clothes when I was going to the university and all of that. My mates were wearing the nicest clothes, but we had to reserve our best clothes for public celebrations, right? And so I just knew if I could keep documenting my journey and I have something I could look back on, that would serve as my own biggest push for me to know that I could accomplish anything that I wanted. And I knew if I could solve a problem for myself, I just need to find enough people who are in the similar situation as I am and provide the solution to them at scale. And that's how I'd get rich. Because I remember it was this guy that I saw that said, I think it was Jim Rohn that said, if you solve enough problems for enough people over a long period of time, you will never lack money. I can't remember who exactly said it, but that was it.
It was Jim Rohn. And what are you doing at 28 years old, quoting all of these older people? Ted Nicholas was one of the great copywriters who I had the pleasure of knowing. He's one of the great copywriters. And, Jim Rohn was just, every time he spoke, you had to listen, closely. The old wisdom is always worth knowing, no matter your age. It's interesting, you've spoken about this idea that if you have a goal or an ambition through here, a goal with a burning ambition sitting underneath it to make that happen, in the ideal world, you would see that carry you upwards above the line, if you like, and above the line thinking. And maybe initially it is just to survive, which means have the resources to get by and do what you need to do, coming from both intrinsic motivation, which is, here's some things personally that are important to me, but also extrinsic motivation, measure, what am I getting? What do I have publicly? What is it that people can see me with? But, surviving isn't enough to be motivated by that fire. The next level is, well, how do I thrive? How do I kind of make my life sing? And then you made an interesting comment about toil. If you take it, if it was a cloth or a blanket, and you wet it and you throw it on the fire of ambition, it puts the fire out. What are the things you see down here in people? 2 or 3 things that you see down here when you know that they're letting the fire go out. What are the characteristics you see in young entrepreneurs and others where you know that the fire is being stifled and dimmed. And if you want to help them, you need to get that wet cloth off them. What are some of the characteristics?
Most people come out of circumstances and have this victim mentality. They see themselves as victims of circumstances. And I do say something. I came from situations, I had a background that could put my back to the ground. But instead of using that as something to put my back to the ground, I used it as the stepping stone to build into the elevation that the elevated position that I'm in right now. So most people adopt victim mentality, which is, oh, this happened against me. But I always say that this happened for me. And it's two different um, perspectives entirely, right? Now, the second thing that most people that I see deal with is they do not change their environment, right? And I always say you may not change your environment physically, but you could change your environment mentally, right? Because you will never, no matter how much willpower you have, you will never outgrow your environment. And that could be mental. Now, you said something that why do I keep quoting these people? The thing is, when I was very, very young, I learned direct response copywriting. And because direct response copywriting essentially means you do something that makes other people take action immediately there and then, right? And I didn't have a lot of money, so I needed to figure out the way to get people to take action that would put money in my pocket immediately, right? And so I started learning all the OGs, Doberman Dan Kennedy, um, I listened to Les Brown motivational speakers because I also understood you can never attain greater heights if your mind isn't functioning for you, right? Because some people, their mind works against them. And when your mind works against you, you can't get into any level in life. And so I started listening to these people and I started practicing also active visualization, which is not only do I say what I want to be, I also write it down. And you know what they say, when it is written down, it becomes your brain starts seeking it to an extent. And so I started doing that. And so most people do not allow themselves to thrive because they don't give themselves the opportunity to thrive. They don't look for cues or they don't look for things that represent what is attainable. Like for me, when I got started in the online space, I got paid $50 for the first time by someone who I made an explainer video for. And that for me was like, oh yeah, this is attainable. If someone could pay me $50 online to make something for them, I just need to find other people who would pay me more money and I would, get what I want to get. But that was proof, active proof for me that, okay, this is attainable. And then I saw someone make $1 million online, Trey Lewellen. He was the first person I ever saw make $1 million in the e-commerce space. And for me, I was like, yeah, this is proof of concept that it is possible. But other people will see that and approach it with skepticism that, oh, no, it's not possible. I get people who attack me and call me, oh, it's a scammer, oh, it's a fraud, because they don't believe it is possible that what I've done is attainable, right? But then there are people who see it and they are inspired and they're like, oh, yeah, I want to learn what you've done. I want to, whatever it is you've done, I want to practice it and I want to approach it. So some people look at it from, nah, I would never amount to something, or this person who has amounted to something has probably done it in a negative way. And you cannot hate something that you want to become. You can't say you want to be rich and then you hate rich people. It's just, it doesn't work like that, right? So you can't attack the wealthy or have the eat the rich mindset and then think you will get rich. It's not how life works. The universe will give you in abundance of what you are constantly envisioning. So if you're envisioning negativity, don't be surprised if you're in a constant loop of negativity. And if you're constantly envisioning abundance, don't be surprised if you're constantly attracting abundance. So Yeah, that's really it. That's what I observed in
I
my
think
own
that
journey.
may well be the line of the podcast. You can't attract something to yourself or be turn into something that you hate, or that you don't regard highly. And so, if we think about this, the cloth that is toil, that is full of water and puts the fire of ambition out, is this victim thinking. It's happening against me. Staying in the same environment, the environment always wins. If we don't shift the environment, the outcome will stay the same. And listening to the negativity around us, it's almost denial. It's looking for the excuses to stay below the line, as opposed to, what this has happened for me, and it's just a stepping stone. And I need to change my environment to change the results. And I need to listen to mentors and then actively visualize the possibilities that come out of that. And this is about actually having real belief in where we're trying to get to. And it is this above the line and below the line dynamic that's always underway. And I'm sure in your mentoring, you're taking entrepreneurs and showing them how to walk that journey. Their burning ambition will extinguish and move downwards if they let the red zone happen, or it will grow and expand upwards if they let the green zone happen. And it's a constant. Entrepreneurship is it's a constant. It's always on. It's maybe the most exciting playing field in the world, if you like, where we're constantly having to think about these. Because of the way your mother died and the life that she had before that, and some of the other things that you've been through. You're quite outspoken on mental health and resilience and things like that. And I'd sort of like to lean into this. How do you balance off personal wealth building with social impact and social consciousness and things like that, which I'm really interested in. I think business should be a powerful force for good on the planet, and it's possible to have a great business, build wealth, but also make a difference. How do you balance that off in your strategy work, your decision making, conversations with your team, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I've always said I'm a conscious capitalist. I want to make a lot of money, but because of the impact that I get to create in the world. And before I even started making any significant amount of money, I always give back to the orphans. Here in Nigeria, they are called motherless babies, and then widows. Like it was always something that I'd always, to an extent, like whenever I made money, I'd always go to the orphanage, give them some, stuff, and even widows. And I just did that, right? And so when my mom died, I was like, dang, it was as if I was preparing to be an orphan right from when I was young, and now I'm an orphan, but I know God will always provide for me. But yeah, like I feel like money is inherently not bad or good in itself. It is the course in which it is used that is not determining whether it is good or bad, right? And I say it, money is an amplifier. So if you're a terrible person and you get a lot of money, you're going to be an absolute terrible person. If you're a good person and you have more money, you're just going to be a multiplier of the good in the world. Now, for me, even if I were to show you like my team guidelines and SOPs and all of that, I always say that one, we're very, very big on creating the best experience for our customers possible. And then for even my staffs, I believe in the vision of who they are themselves, and I try to understand their individual motivation so I can cater to that, right? Because it's not everybody that is doing by, oh yeah, we want to make $1 million this month. Some of them are doing because of how that will impact them, like the free time they get to spend with their family and stuff like that. So for me, I till now I donate to causes that I hold dear. Matter of fact, we're creating some pieces with my watch brand. We're creating 49 pieces. My mom died at 49. We're creating 49 pieces, and 49% of the proceeds from that will be donated to, it's going to be $49,000, but 49% of the proceeds from that will be donated to mental health awareness and suicide prevention cases. And also, my grandma died of breast cancer, so we're donating to cancer research and studies, and also like to orphans, which I've always done. But I guess now I just need to be a lot more vocal about the things that I actually donate to, and the causes that I'm constantly investing into. But yeah, I've always believed that you can't help anybody if you don't have anything. It's practically impossible for you to help someone when you're still struggling, right? So go make a lot of money and then go impact the world. Even one of the reasons why I got into private equity, if we're to look at it, because my goal is I want to coach and guide 50 people on how to build, scale, and exit their brands for at least $250 million. Now, if 50 people do that, that's $12.5 billion. They walk away with $200 million at the end of the sale. I walk away with $50 million. And that gives me $2.5 billion by myself. And that will allow me to now start investing into Black-led and minority-owned brands, so they can get the funding and capital for them to further develop their own brands faster. Because one thing is, so for the first time, right, I just got my own Amex card, right, which when we look at it, I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years, but I had zero knowledge about credit or stacking credit and all of that, because I come from an environment where we were never taught that, right? We had a cash-based economy. And so if I can provide knowledge and insights to other people, I did that for one of my friends, and now she's American. I do say I know more about the American credit system at this point than most Americans, because I obsessed about studying and understanding the concept of credit. I was surprised. I got to learn of credit when 2022 for the first time ever. Like I was 24 when I learned of credit. Like I was shocked. I'm like, yeah, you want to buy something, you could just leverage other people's money. I didn't know that. In my own place, if you want to buy a car, you want to buy a phone, anything you want, you have to go with your cash. You have to show up for it. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me understand this. Let me understand the concept. So financial literacy is another thing. A lot of founders know how to build businesses,
Yeah.
but they build their business for just cash flow. They don't build the business to be able to sell it. They don't build the business to be able to run outside of them. So that's why I started, documenting my own journey and sharing more about what I'm doing. I feel like even sharing your knowledge to an extent is a form of charity, because you're giving back what cost you time, money, tears, and struggle. So yeah.
Yeah. And it sort of brings us back to what you said earlier as well. You don't do anything if there's not a huge demand for it. You don't do anything if there is not a story that you can attach to it, that you can write copy around and create a compelling engagement for the marketplace. And you don't do anything if you can't run it as a business where other people can deliver it, basically, so that it's not attached to you, if you like. You're working on the business. What's the one bit of advice or wisdom that you would want every entrepreneur, and let's not just talk about young entrepreneurs, there are people in their 60s that would be listening to your story that would be going, well, that's just really clever. That's so obvious. Why haven't I thought about that before? What's the one bit of wisdom that you would share with entrepreneurs and say, look, if you remember anything, remember this? What would you say to them?
Entrepreneurship is the biggest character development journey you will embark on. There will be higher highs and lower lows, extremely higher highs and extremely lower lows. It will strip you of everything you think you are. Like, if you have trauma, entrepreneurship will amplify it. And if you've worked on yourself, it will show it. It will be the biggest personal development journey you can embark on, but it is also the most rewarding thing you can do for yourself if you can stick through it. So if you can't stomach the punches, don't step into the ring. If you can't stomach the
Yeah.
punches entrepreneurship will throw at you, don't step into the ring. But yep, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, it is true that, you know,
that's
your nervous system needs to be wired for it a little bit. You know, you need to, not everyone is geared for the entrepreneurial journey. I'd love to wrap up with 3 quick questions for quick responses so people could just find out a bit more about you if you're up for the game. Just, you know, rapid fire questions and responses. Okay, if we do that?
yeah, sure.
Do you have a personal philosophy that kind of guides all of your decisions?
Yep. I even have it tattooed on me. Take a bet on yourself.
Take a bet on yourself. Fantastic. If you could have invented anything in the world that already exists, what would you love to have been the inventor of?
Something that already exists, I would love to invent. That's a hard one. I never thought about it that way. I think what I would love to invent that doesn't exist yet. Uh, it would be if there was a model that would impact speed of execution. And okay, maybe something that is close to it is OpenAI. I'd have loved to be the one who invented OpenAI because it, to an extent, speeds up
Yeah.
your speed of executing on your ideas. But that's like the closest to something I would, yeah,
Yeah.
OpenAI would have been something I would have loved to invent.
Interesting. Is there a problem in
Yeah.
the world that has not been solved that you would love to solve?
Speed of execution is still a big problem in the world that hasn't been solved, especially in third world countries. The
Yes.
inefficiency is huge. The level of inefficiency is huge. That's something that I feel like my late 40s or 50s will be focused on. For now, I want to still optimize in environments that are functional, where I can extrapolate as much capital as possible, and then I can come here to deploy the capital. But
Fantastic.
yeah, like that's one thing I would love to put my effort towards.
Well, I'm sure you are working your way towards it. Qawiyy, thank you for giving us this time and for walking us through, you know, a journey that's not the typical journey that a lot of entrepreneurs have been on. Certainly, I don't know that many have at the age of 11 decided to talk to a security guard to procure the product for them to sell to a market that's in desperate need, and then somehow have the foresight to turn that into a paid in advance go-to-market model. That's quite extraordinary. And what you were building was the mechanism for your business for, you know, at 11 for the next 17 years kind of thing that you've now proven through multiple markets. So thank you very much for spending this time with us and you know, sharing the kind of the insights that you have from you know, a pathway that not a lot of people necessarily have walked. And I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes.